Okay. I just listened to a podcast by Ollie Richards. I will teach you a language. And he was responding to a italki comment saying it was titled "My Teachers Just Don't Get It," and this uh, Chinese learner he's an upper elementary Chinese learner, and what he wants from his teachers is he wants conversational practice with them practicing what he has already learned. Um, and his complaint is that he's tried 15 different Chinese teachers on italki, and all of them go back to teaching him grammar and vocabulary, and he doesn't really want teaching, he wants practice. And so Ollie Richards and a friend of his tried to address this question. I had some different thoughts on it than Ollie Richards and his friend. So I'll first summarize what Ollie Richards and his friend talked about briefly, and then share my thoughts. So Ollie Richards and his friend, they said, of course, we need to, know more context to answer this better, and I agree with Ollie on that. And then they went down the path of saying that the student really needs to take responsibility and guide the conversation towards what the learner wants. And also they talked about how within Chinese language learning, especially in their traditional school systems, a lot of it's based around just listening to the teacher. The teacher teaches. You don't interrupt the teacher. You don't ask questions that makes you look stupid. This is what they talked about for the Chinese school system. And so they said it might be cultural, but then they also kind of gave a qualifier, and they said, but when I talk with Chinese people, they seem open to having conversations and not just teaching. And so, and then finally, they said that upper elementary just might not be a high enough level to have this conversational practice that you want with the teacher. They say, look at if Steve Kaufman was here, he would say you just need to read and listen and have a lot of intake. And then once you get to that higher level, you can have the conversational practice. And then again, they qualified it by saying, but we always say that you can start talking right off the bat. You just need to have these simple conversations. So that's about all they said. I'll start my response with addressing that last answer they said, where you just need to what was it? Sorry. They said with a qualifier that you can't start off right off the bat after saying that it's better if they have the student has a higher knowledge. And my answer is that that's why a teacher needs to be involved. And that's why you pay a teacher, so that the teacher can provide good resources, so that the student can have that simple conversation right off the bat. And that connects to the first point that Ollie Richards was talking about. He says that the responsibility should be on the student to guide the conversation towards what he wants. And he says, he kept saying that the onus is on the student. The student knows broadly what he wants. He wants to practice the language, but that's why the student is paying the teacher. So the teacher knows about language learning, and the teacher can provide a good setup for a beginner like him, so that he can have good conversation and practice. Um, and if the onus and responsibility is not on the teacher, well, then that's why you have language exchanges. That's why that's when the responsibility is on the student, coming up. I mean, you might as well have a language exchange with someone else and have a just talk back and forth, and have a conversation. And but this student, and I think many others, they don't they decide not to have a language exchange, but actually have a teacher, because they want more than just a conversation. And they realize that it's hard to have a conversation at the beginner level, because obviously their knowledge is so low. And that's why a teacher is very helpful at that beginning level, because they can create the system and setup so that you can have a beginner level conversation and really practice your knowledge. So you can see I disagree on some points with Ollie Richards and his friend. And that also shows the importance of why it's good to have a good language teacher. What I would recommend to the student is look at the profiles of the teachers. Maybe you're not paying enough money to get a good teacher. Look for a teacher that says they have experience with beginners, that they can help with conversational practice for beginners. It's easy doing conversational practice for intermediate, upper intermediate, advanced students. You can go with the flow and take it where you will, but you have to have a plan for the beginners, elementary, and pre-intermediate. And so with that plan, a lot of it is curriculum, and it's actually pretty simple. The teacher can have a good book that they work off, and the book, you can have different kinds of books. So you can have, this student wants to practice more the conversation, and not as much the grammar. So you can find a book that has more conversation, is focused more on the conversation. And if you find a beginner book, then you just follow the format of the book. And, obviously at the beginner level, there's not going to be as much of a free flow of conversation at the beginner level, elementary. The lower you go, the less creativity is involved. But you can still have a conversation, and that's good. And just to again address the comment that the student just needs a higher level, and Steve Kaufman would say, just read and listen. I mean, that method works. Read and listen till you get to a high level. It works for some people, especially works for people like Steve Kaufman, who really like to read and listen. But there are other people that really enjoy talking, and it's a good method of practice for them. I enjoy a mix of everything, and I think that a mix of everything, reading, listening, speaking, writing, all of it together right from the start, I think that's very good. They all four help each other. And for me, I find that speaking is a good motivation for me to learn a language. So I agree with Steve Kaufman. You don't need that much speaking at the beginning. And you'll learn more just from the reading and listening, and doing a bit of writing too. but that speaking is good, very good motivation for you to learn through the other methods. There, because you see the language is alive, and you have these language exchange friends, and you want to be able to communicate better with them. So that propels you to study hard on the reading and the listening and writing. So and I have, as an English teacher, I have given lessons to students that are beginner, elementary, pre-intermediate, and we've had a lot of conversation practice. So I'm proof right there that it can be done. And I think the student would need to flesh out a bit more what he wants, and so we can and I think that could have been a problem he had with his teachers as well, where if he explained a bit more, then he might be able to get what he wants. So like, does he want to practice certain vocabulary that he learned on his own? Is it fine to use a textbook? And I think another thing I'd recommend to him is, if he can't really explain it that well, to find a teacher that says they have many different methods of teaching, and then have a lesson where you do 10 minutes of one method, then you switch, do 10 minutes of another method, and for a hour-long lesson, then you can try 6 different methods in 60 minutes. That could be, and then the student can say, oh, I liked this one method at the 30-minute mark. So that's another suggestion. So okay, well, I think that does it for that. So see you later.